If you thought I was going to say this film was mind-blowing, well, you just might be psychic too. So without any further ado, let's talk about this one. What's going on, Dungeon Dwellers? Welcome back to Dave's Dungeon. As always, I am the one, the only, Dungeon Master Dave, bringing you yet another horror masterpiece in this Spooktober movie review. Oh boy. The film for this evening's viewing entertainment was Scanners, the 1981 David Cronenberg film. And before we can get off in this juicy film, let's talk a little bit about how I do these reviews and break it down a little bit. So I review each film based on 5 criteria, and those are plot, special effects, tension, gore, victim, killer, etc. And I put the ending in this last category too, just to make it extra spicy. We have a spoiler and a non-spoiler section, so without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with the non-spoiler, let's talk about the plot a little bit. I have to say, as a setup for a film, this film, I don't know, it's a rather, I don't want to say subtle approach, I don't want to say nuanced, but it comes at this problem from a few different angles. That being said, the writing on this film, and again, David Cronenberg both wrote and directed this film, but and I don't mean the writing necessarily for the plot itself, but the dialogue on this film, yeesh. I mean that dialogue is awful. And I can't blame the principal actor, because I've seen him in other things, and he's been rather fantastic. And you damn sure better not come from Michael Ironsides, because that'll be the end of you. It just... You can tell the dialogue is of its age, and you can tell the sort of cinematography is also of its age. But those being the gripes I have for it out of the way, this film is smart. This film knows what it's doing. This film is absolutely messing with you the whole time. And for that, I have to say, the plot of the film just really heightens it. It really gets you into the, well, who is and who isn't question of horror. You know, when we have the unknown person of threat, the unknown sort of thing, and then to see it taken to the level that it is amazing for 1981. I mean, they were pulling off some stuff back then. And, I mean, oh my God, you get one of the best psychic battles I've ever seen, man. One of the best. So if you're, without spoiling it, psychic battle. Let's do this, man. I mean, it's imagined well for all the limitations that the film has, for all the limitations the time period had. I mean, everything in this movie had to be done practically. So that means everything that you see happen. There is no CG. There was no CG then. We're just dealing. I mean, well, let's be honest. There was clip art CG then. There were. I don't even know if there was clip art CG then. I think that was like 93, 94. So yeah, this would have been way before they could do anything with computers that had anything to do with CGI. So the computers you see in this film are the only computers that were used in the making of the film. And that's rather sad, because they're all about the size of a room. But with that being said, the overall plot, the sort of shoehorning at the end of Revik and the whole thing, and I'd have to give the plot an 8. 7 to an 8. I think it's not the movie's strongest suit, but I do think it's still relatively good. I detracted probably a full point for the really sort of like ham-fisted dialogue you get sometimes. And it really is almost a cutting problem, almost like the editor, I don't want to say took the wrong shots, but took the wrong performances at certain points. I don't know. I feel like you get really jarring performances at times. And that's not to say that this movie doesn't have some good ones. Don't get me wrong. There are just times where you can tell the whatever the setup was, it wasn't fully sort of realized. And that being said, special effects, I think this movie goes above and beyond with special effects. And I think special effects in this film have a new sort of meaning, since we're not talking about what CGI thing was on the screen versus what practical thing is on the screen. You really have two main special effects throughout the film, and where one of them is you know, the best in the business, the other one is actually something that's far overlooked, far more meaningful, far more impactful, and far more pervasive throughout the whole film. And I mean, that really comes down to how the movie uses practical effects, and that it comes down to how the movie uses sound, and not just in the soundtrack of this film, because the soundtrack in this film is, I mean, a bop. It is straight up fire, lit from underneath. You really, really, really should check out the soundtrack for this movie, even if you're not going to watch the movie. Some of you have D&D games that this soundtrack will spice up, I promise. But even past that, the movie grinds on you with the sounds it makes. And I have to say this so that you guys, even in the non-spoiler section, get it. Because this film has been out since 1981. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you waiting on? Go see this film, please. You can watch it for free, just about in 2 different places. Okay, go see this film. It's a masterpiece and it's a classic. I am not worthy to review this film and give it a grade. It is in the chronicles of horror masterpiece classics. Okay, this was one of those films that I was raised on from ye olden days. Okay, this is one of my first films where I was sort of, introduced to something that, let's see if we can do this correctly. Of course it's this way. You see this? See this? I know some of you are going, God, this is hard to... Why am I still doing it that way? It's that way. It's over there. It's just over there. Okay. I'm going to get this one day, but this whole, the camera reverses stuff is messing with me. So, you see that? You see all that? That's all practical. They actually had to do that, and I know a little bit about that, so we'll talk about that in special effects in the spoiler section, because I don't want to ruin anybody's sort of... Oh, I don't know. I don't want to ruin anybody's illusion or anything, so I'll let that speak for itself. But the special effects in this film are 10. I have to say that just out the gate. Between how the actual imagination portrays what the sound design of the film does and works on you like a special effect, and the actual practical effects they pull off, I really have to say they're a 10, and I really can't say more than that in this section. Really, I have never seen a film use sound in the way that this film has. And I don't think that we will ever see another film use sound in the way that the film actually uses sound to represent what it represents. That being said, tension in this film is a 10. It is a 10. Because not only is the effect of the movie working on you, where the plot is making you feel creeped out and wondering who all's doing what and in what way, because while you get a sense of what's going on, a lot of this is theater of the mind, and you're having to be informed of it, not on visual cues, but on audio cues and on sort of suggestions and verbalizations that make more sense. But that being said, between the sound design, the soundtrack, the text, everything, it just grinds on you the whole time you're watching it. And I mean, this scene over here is pretty early. So, you get a real big spook, but then the tension of it, the whole idea is now circling in your head the whole time, going, who could do that and where are they and why? You're looking around every corner wondering who's following who for most of the film. So the tension is just I have to say, if this film doesn't get you excited over the idea of a psychic battle, you really get excited for the tension of this film and the intrigue of this film, because it's really good at that. No film, I don't think, has used tension in the way that this film has, and really in the way the early scene does. That early scene. Yeah, I'm gonna practice with you guys on this review today, so I know that my thing is always over there. It's always over there. Hey thing, hey you. Yeah, I'll get it. I promise. It's just I'm thinking of the review and not where things are. But that being said, let's move on to gore, and serious gore warning on this. Serious gore warning. This film set the standard on gore warnings, okay? And it set the standard on what practical effects could bring to life in terms of gore. So if not for that reason, really you need to watch this film. That's a 10 on its own. Victim and Killer is a 10. Like I said, this film's practically a 50. I don't really have a reason for rating this other than I want to talk about it. So I'm not worthy to rate this film. Let's just be honest. I've watched thousands of horror films, and you'll rarely get one that's this good. Rarely get one that's this good. This is on the level of The Fly. This is on the level of so many other films from this era that I just needed it as a palate cleanser for real. It's not like I hadn't seen Scanners before I did this review. And it's not like this is going to be the last time I watch it either. For as much as y'all get upset at that, I might go have some watermelon after all this is done. But that's going to do it for the non-spoiler section of this review. If you would, make sure you leave a like. I really appreciate it when y'all do. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, like watching someone stab someone. Make sure you subscribe if you want more horror content. We're going to have a lot more coming down the road. Gaming shouldn't get in the way of it too much, seeing I'll release 1 to 2 videos on movies a week, maybe more, depending on how much I'll really like it. Gaming will probably take its back seat where it's supposed to be, and you'll get some 50-50 stuff, and I'll get a little bit more time to develop those things. But not to extend this review any longer than I have to, I just wanted to let you know before you ran away that I was going to be working on that kind of stuff coming forward. So thank you so much for joining me on these adventures, Dungeon Dwellers. I hope to see you on the next leg of our journeys together. But for now, you better run away before I make your head explode with my mind. Alright, that's enough. Let's get into these spoilers. I really gotta say, if you've not seen this film, the opening sort of shock is gonna be a nice note to sort of punch you in the mouth with. And that's really why I put it up here on the poster. I gotta remember, the fingers gotta go back this way, but it's easier I just point that way. Okay, so let's just do the other arm. But that's why I really put that poster up there. There are easier posters for you to look at, but that one is really my gore warning, and I'm gonna make sure it's on my opening thing. And if YouTube gets mad at me, that's their fault, because YouTube literally has scanners on YouTube and has the red band trailer for this. By the way, if you've not seen a red band trailer, because they're rare, this movie actually had one. And if you want to chuckle, if you want to know how much of a troll David Cronenberg is, go watch that red band trailer and tell me what you think of it. Come back and leave it down in the comments below. Tell me what you think of that red band trailer. Because I have to say, for 1981, they had some chutzpah. Whoever thought, yeah, let's just do that, and then make that what it is, the opening credits, the opening, scenes of the movie. Yeah, I'm down. And mind you, the whole mall stuff happens sort of intermittently, but then to have that sort of be your introduction to Revok, and it just to have that be so early and so visceral. It's a really good starting gun, as we like to say in the business. If you don't know what a starting gun is, it's sort of the start of the troubles, our initial victim, or the discovery of our initial victim. Sometimes you can have a starting gun that isn't found until the third act of the film. Sometimes they get found mid-film. Sometimes they go off in the first act. And the Scanners is one of those. It just bang, let's go. And it's refreshing. There is no slow burn here. There's just burn. Okay? It is pure octane. Because the concept is so... I want to say this. The artist in the middle part of this film, think of that like David Cronenberg's Avatar. And if the author was talking to us, the film director. Let's think about that for a second. So much of this is weird already. He doesn't feel like he needs to do much other than let you linger in it and linger in the confusion and linger in, well, how do you navigate this? And well, once you figure that out and you figure out how to get some grasp on the situation, well, now you've got a job. Now they want you to do something. They haven't just helped you out of the kindness of their good hearts. And it's like, okay, well, now great power, great responsibility. Okay. And then it gets extra. It just gets extra. And that's where it's like, well, I'm so glad they don't like kick a football for a half hour, or I have to watch a scene where, I'm watching traffic or a tree, or, there's a lot that this film doesn't do that modern cinema could remember. There's no rationale for showing me a particular shot of a particular street unless that street's important. And this film sticks to that. It really does. And David Cronenberg's kind of good about that. So I really give him props for that. The psychic powers in the film are so good, and the whole idea that there's no visualization in most of it, that it's all when you're getting scanned or being scanned, you get a reaction to it. When you are seeing someone scan someone, though, you're not seeing it, you're hearing it. Remember, that whole film grinds on you with the sound, and you hear that ringing, and you hear it just keep going and going and going, and you're going, why does this? Can someone tell the violinist to stop? Did a violinist die during the middle of this, and it's just haunting us the whole time, where they're just forever? That is the psychic power. And I don't think I've ever seen another film use sound to represent a force that you couldn't see being enacted between people that way before. And I don't know if anybody's ever done that the same way again. Because most of the time, when we see some sort of magic or psychic powers or anything sort of telekinetic, psychokinetic, anything like that, it has a visualization to it. And I'll say, to prove my point, this is probably one of the top 3 wizard battles that I've ever seen. And my top 3 go: House of the Long Shadows is number 1 with Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, and God, that's like a rat pack of horror royalty. It's Peter Cushing, Vincent Price. Who's the third one? Anyways, if you haven't seen House of the Long Shadows, just look up Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, Wizard Battle. That's all you need. You'll find it. It's the greatest thing in the world. Then you get this with the psychic battle at the end, in the climax, and in a lot of the film, you get a lot of these sort of like tug of wars between psychics. And I love it. This film is probably the number 1 of psychic battles. The House of the Long Shadows is like a nostalgic number 2. And then I have to say there's another entry to this list that also does a psychic battle, but they're going to prove my point, and that is Dark City. And Dark City did a lot with mental powers being visualized, and that made a lot of sense for what that film was going for. A lot of the art aesthetic for that film needed sort of visualization, given how dark it was and how, I want to almost say Art Deco it was. It needed visualization, and so the psychic powers being visualized, CG was still the thing. And it's like, do I think Dark City worked as well as Skinner's does? And I say no. I say it was better when it was just a sound, and when I couldn't see it, I didn't know who was doing it, I didn't have a way of rationalizing it, I just had to hope I was understanding what was going on, given what I was seeing, what I was hearing, and the sort of situation, as it were. And that's the really cool thing about the concept here, the execution here. You don't know who you can trust. And even once you get to the end and you find out Paul Ruth is not the nice guy you think he is, and he's as much a setup man as Revok is by the end of it. While you find all that out, the film still carries the tension of all of it throughout, and just keeps amping it up and amping it up, and you're just, by the end, you don't even know what you're worried about anymore, because you've gotten new things to worry about, between the kids becoming more powerful than the adults in the new age of surprise, they're mutating babies, spoilers, using ephemeral, which thought that was a fun word to use there for a name of a drug that gives you psychic powers. Neat sort of irony, juxtaposition, and sort of cleverness in the term for the drug. I thought that was neat. But it's like, Are parts of this film hard to watch? Yes. But for the reason of the directors doing something, and the whole idea is that it's supposed to be uncomfortable. So you're kind of wincing the whole time. And I find myself doing it. I'm like, come on, get through this. Because some of the scenes, I mean, the whole idea is to leave you in the tension and to just twist it and twist it and twist it and twist it until it's just about ready to break and then snap. This film does a lot to make sure that it builds up just the right amount of agony before it, lets off the gas or shoves the pedal all the way to the floor. And I have to say, there's something for knowing how to do that. There's something to knowing how to do that. And a lot of films try and fail to even capture a shadow of what this film kind of does. So, I don't know. I have to say, this film set a lot of trends. And a lot of the films that follow it, please don't watch. Scanners is a one film hustle. I know there's, please God, don't at me, bro. Don't at me with Scanners 2 and 3. No. Scanners is a one trick pony. Don't you at me with those. Don't you even dare. I think that's enough. I don't necessarily want to harp on it too much. And like I said, it's a child of its time. It's not necessarily the shiniest or the most spectacular when it comes to visuals or plot structure, nuance, setting, da 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 da. Well, you've probably seen movies that have had the same plot, but they're the remake of this movie. You get what I'm saying? There are movies that have probably tried to do this, and you've witnessed them, and you're going, oh, well, this is just a copy of that, when really that was just a copy of this. Anything else? David Cronenberg's other films are really screwed up too, but in like the best ways. Videodrome is another film that I thought about, maybe putting on this list, but it's like, do I really want to go through that again? And yeah, I do. I'm getting the itch for it again. For those of you who get that joke, haha, I love you. You're my favorites. Those of you who don't, yeah, go watch Videodrome and come back when you're like, wow, I didn't want to do that. Oh, anything else we need to talk about? I do like the idea of the dangers of what has God wrought and what have we. I did like all of that, where we were pushing the lines of what we're supposed to be doing as human beings. Anything else? Oh, the ending. The ending is only as the 80s deliver. And some of you are going to absolutely hate it. And some of you are going to go, I don't understand it. And it's like, dude, it's... Okay. Transcendentalism. The aristocrats. It's about as effective. The idea in my mind, and this is my interpretation, and in this way it's heavy spoilers because it's my interpretation. But the way I see the end of that film, he set up a mental link. Vale set up a mental link between him and Revik, and then set himself ablaze. So we all know that they were trying to make him experience something that he couldn't overcome, with the overloading the computer and trying to set it off while he's in there and all those other things where they're mentally attacking him and trying to make him, lose his mind. the only thing that really seemed to push anybody too far was death and the idea that they were dying. So, in his own mind, he saw that sort of fear in a moment in his own face, and he's pulling his skin off. He's like, oh my God, I'm dying. And then he found peace with it. So he literally sets himself on fire in a half second. And in that moment where he's found peace, Rebek experiences that, and it overloads him, and he's already pushed to a limit with how much he's having to struggle against Cameron. And so it overloads him, and then Cameron uses that as an opportunity to do the body swap thing, whereas Michael Ironside so lovingly said, all right, well, we're just going to do this the Scanner's way, and I'm going to suck you dry. And it's like, oh, yes. Yes. Yes, this is why I love you. This is why I love you. He is, I don't want to say he's like Papa Cage, but when you see Michael Ironside in a film, you know you're fixing to get a performance. And I think it was Stephen Lang. I think that's who the main character is. He does a good job, and I've seen him play in other roles, and he's not bad. He wasn't really a bad actor. I really like the sort of charisma they drive him from. They drive him from some sort of poverty to sort of a found place, so it does have that coming of age feel. And given the sort of twist going on at the end where you find out the truth, which I will leave for you lovely people to discover on your own. Once you find that little nugget out, ooh, the movie gets real good. And the twist ending makes a lot of sense once you think about kind of the way I broke all that down. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope you enjoyed Scanners. I love this film. This film's actually pretty good. In terms of, I don't want to say this is in my like upper echelon of films I like to watch on a regular basis, but this is definitely in my once to twice a year kind of category. So sometimes I'm just like every other year, because that opening sequence is just like wham, you know. But that's going to do it for this review, and that's going to do it for Scanners. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you leave a like. Those of you who are hanging around, my hardcore horror lovers who are watching all the way to the end, man, I really appreciate y'all. And y'all don't know how much it means to me that y'all really enjoy hearing what I have to say about these films. But that's going to do it for today's review. I hope you've enjoyed our adventures today, Dungeon Dwellers. I hope to see you on our next journeys. And remember,